welcome back to the Guardian film show, sailing off in search of adventure, fresh starts and the promised land of cinema. We're leaving behind the tired old terrain of last week's releases and heading for the new world of this week's releases. But be warned that the crossing may be choppy. Just in case, bring a bucket.
I don't want my restaurant to be a place where you come and eat. I want people to sit at that table and be sick with longing.
Rising up in a splurge, Bradley Cooper is a celebrity chef on a mission in the culinary romp Burnt. Nicholas Hoult plots murder on the dance floor and in the boardroom in the record biz satire Kill Your Friends. And director Davis Guggenheim salutes a hero of our times in the documentary He Called Me Malala.
No!
This time,
But our first stop is Brooklyn, the soaring tale of an Irish immigrant in 1950s New York, still pining for the land she left behind. And here to set the scene is Benjamin Lee talking to the film star Saoirse Ronan and author Colm Tóibín.
I'll put some rouge and mascara on you. Perhaps a little eyeliner.
We all emigrate in the sense we all leave home, and everybody knows that feeling of your first 2 months away, whether it's in university or whether you go and get a job, and so you think, I can never have my old bedroom, where's my teddy bear, where's my comfort zone? And you can go home for the weekend, but you suddenly, and of course you have to do it. And within a few months you've got new friends and you sort of forget how helpless you felt at a certain point. But if you come to England from Lithuania, or to Ireland from Poland, or to Germany from Syria, you say, oh God, everything has to be navigated, renegotiated.
Father Flood sponsored me. He found me a job.
They told you a date for the nylon sale yet, Hamish?
Oh, dear God.
I'll thank you to keep his name out of a conversation about nylons.
We need Irish girls in Brooklyn.
I wish that I could stop feeling that I want to be an Irish girl in Ireland.
We're a very grounded kind of nation. And actually I find that when we've gone over to the States or become part of the industry or started to become involved in the business side of film or whatever it is that you do, it does definitely take you a while to learn how to say no and learn how to kind of stand up for what you need and what you need to get from your work and the business side of it. But I also like that, you know, most Irish people that have gone into that world are quite grounded.
I'm joined by Peter Bradshaw and Benjamin Lee. Peter, I think I've seen this kind of period saga done many times before, and yet this was really top-notch, I think.
I thought it had a touch of class. There was a spoonful of sugar in the mix, I have to say. It was a very intelligent transformation of the novel, but it made it something slightly different in a way, because the original book by Colm is valued for its extreme subtlety and intelligence and discreet observation and all the rest of it. Now, much though I enjoy the film, those weren't its values, really. This is a very robust drama with big moments, big emotions, big supporting turns from Jim Broadbent and Julie Walters. I mean, you wheel them on, you don't expect them to go off quietly. They go off like kind of cannons, basically. Yeah. And I don't have a problem with that. I feel compelled, out of almost a sense of sort of kind of playing devil's advocate to myself, that when I came out of the screening, my friend, the critic Henry Fitzherbert, said to me, I'm so sad I don't have a granny to recommend that to. And resentful though I was at his remark, I could see the point of view against it, but to second guess and third guess myself, I think what it has is this terrifically intelligent, confident, forthright script by Nick Hornby, and basically I think a wonderful lead performance by
really
Saoirse Ronan, who just inhabits the screen.
We know he's quite nice looking.
I didn't like his shoes much.
What on earth is wrong with his shoes?
They were a funny colour.
I tell you this much, I'm going to ask Father Flood to preach a sermon on the dangers of giddiness. I see now that giddiness is the 8th deadly sin. A giddy girl is every bit as evil as a slothful man, and the noise she makes is a lot worse. Enough.
All she has to do is sit there in her small hometown in Ireland, and she's just told, guess what, you're going to America. And she doesn't want to seem like an ungrateful girl, so she just submits to it. And she has to be enormously passive, and yet at the same time, the audience has to make their investment in her. And when she starts taking action on her own account in America, she has to take everyone along with her. And that Ronan does, I think, terrifically well.
Ben, do you have a grandmother to recommend this to?
I don't actually know, but I get that point completely. And I think Peter was saying there's a spoonful of sugar added. I'd say there's probably a few bowls full of sugar really added. I think I was hoping for a little bit more from this. I thought there was an interesting setup, interesting time period, but I felt as if all it becomes ultimately is this quite sappy love triangle. It felt like a BBC adaptation of a Nicholas Sparks novel to me. I didn't see what else there was to it that I haven't seen, like you said before. The problem with the love triangle for me is that Saoirse Ronan's character is interesting. These two love interests she has, I mean, Emery Cohen I think's great in it, but their characters are so nice and flawless that you kind of don't really care who she ends up with, because either way she'll have a really nice time.
Emery Cohen is the Italian-American
the Italian boy.
Yeah, and he's very charming.
Plumber in Brooklyn, and then you've got Donald Gleeson as the good boy back home of good family.
They're both perfectly nice, and so I didn't really care where she ended up with, because I was saying it'd be happy either way, and that's the whole film. It's very sweet. They didn't really seem as much at stake as I really wanted to, because everything seems quite easy and nice. And to me, Brooklyn at the moment, it sums up this kind of uninspired award season where you get films which are adequate like this and spotlight the Catholic Church drama, which are being pushed as frontrunners because they're both nice films that you can't really say anything bad about without any great films coming out.
Is that Jim Farrell I saw? He's a catch for someone.
I imagined a different life for myself.
But your life here could be just as good. Better, even.
Saoirse Ronan torn between the past and the future in Brooklyn. And now, with a resounding cry of 3 minutes on that halibut, we come to our next film about a hot-headed 2 Michelin star chef who is hell-bent on becoming a hot-headed 3 Michelin star chef. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet of first-world problems, and Bradley Cooper is about to get burnt.
I was 16, I quit school. I saved just enough for a one-way ticket to Paris. Maybe I just wanted it really bad, and then when I got it too early, I didn't know how to hold on to it.
Chow down on Burnt, a tale of career death or glory in the fanciest restaurants of London town. Adam Jones slipped on his own ego and fell into a deep fat fryer of his own making. But he's bouncing back better than ever, with the help of Sienna Miller's Saucier and, of course, his own brilliant, bristling genius. He's about to make his masterpiece.
If you try to start a new restaurant, there are at least a dozen people who will try to have you killed.
The kitchen's the only place I've ever felt like I really belonged. I loved every minute of it, the heat, the pressure, the violence.
Ben, your compliments to the chef?
Well, I was actually hoping for something at least vaguely watchable in sort of a plain movie level, because I quite enjoyed Chef, although a lot of people didn't like it as much. And I kind of was hoping for some decent food porn at least, but it's one of those films that from the first few lines of dialogue, it's so incompetent. I just hated it from the start. Yeah. Every single line doesn't really make sense. They don't speak like real people, they speak like characters. There's a scene where Bradley Cooper meets Omar Sy's character, and it's the first time you've met his character, Omar Sy. And Omar Sy says something like, I haven't seen you for so long. The last time I saw you was when I was your sous chef in Paris at John Luke's Kitchen. It's like,
and you're a good chef.
You're the good guy.
Yeah. Just, everyone keeps saying you're the best. You're the best. But another person says, oh, but he scares me.
And he scares you because he keeps on throwing stuff around all the time. And the film is 60% montage, so you find out things through montage. So there's no real kind of discovery of recipes or ingredients or even the method of cooking. You see things really, really fastly cut, and you see quick shots of food and awful tasting sort of noises from Uma Thurman's taste noises are particularly awful. And you don't really understand the process of cooking at all. It's just a film that seems massively incompetent. There's this really funny part where Sienna Miller kind of gets lured to his kitchen by the promise of triple her pay. And then she tries to leave, and they say, we'll double your pay now. And you start thinking, she's one of the highest paid chefs in the world now. She's under him.
She's on 500 grand a year.
3 times 5, I don't know what is that. Unbelievable.
The other thing with Sienna Miller's character that I couldn't quite get over was when it's her daughter's birthday and she brings her into the restaurant and Bradley Cooper cooks a cake for her, but then sits with the kid and eats the cake, and he's never met the kid. And Sienna Miller's left in the kitchen.
Yes, it's very, very bizarre. That presumably is to show that he's got a heart of gold after all. Instead, it shows he's even more of a weirdo and a sociopath than we thought, and we really did think he was weird. I've got to say, I am agnostic about foodie, porny films in the first place. Even Meisterwerks like Babette's Feast, kind of. It's not that the film leaves me cold, but the massive amount of chatter surrounding them saying, oh, isn't the food in it mouth-watering? I would say, no, real food is mouth-watering. Food on film, not so much, to be honest with you, and that aspect of it.
It's like dancing about architecture.
Kind of, yes. I mean, the only foodie film I've ever really liked, I think, is Ratatouille, which incidentally is very good on the subject of food criticism, which oddly plays a huge role in this film. The food critics of the Michelin Guide are treated with baffling respect. Who are these people? Considering Adam thinks of himself as this preening mercurial genius, he seems to defer to these bores who work for the Michelin Guide.
And who give themselves away. Oh, you can always tell because they leave a fork
Because they leave a fork under the table. What? Do they? That's fascinating. I don't know. I mean, I think there's nothing less compelling, less interesting, or less plausible than the idea of a shouty, sexy chef. I mean, they're just workplace bullies, really, and we're supposed to think they're fascinating
and ludicrous.
Yeah. I kind of don't believe it either, and there's something so macho about it. I mean, what about all the great female chefs there are in London, as a matter of fact? But this script, which appears to have come from the 1970s, with its cheesy kind of getting the heist gang back together scenes.
And dodgy sexual politics.
Very dodgy, the self-hating homosexual played by Daniel Brühl.
But he's celibate, so he's lovable.
Yeah, exactly, and he's in love, and he's sniffing Adam's T-shirt. Oh, there's something very reactionary and dodgy about it.
You are looking at that all the time, yeah? You have eyes on it the whole time, so you hit the pass.
Yes, chef.
Yeah, look at me. Yeah?
Yes,
You up for it?
Yes, chef.
All right, let's go!
E. coli all round for the viewers of Burnt. Next up, thank heavens, we have He Called Me Malala, an inspiring portrait of the youngest ever winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. But obviously the big question posed by this movie is whether Malala is quite as good as she and others would have us believe. And happily, the answer is yes.
There is a moment when you have to choose whether to be silent or to stand up.
From her home in Pakistan's Swat Valley, teenage Malala campaigned for equal rights and education and found herself targeted by Taliban gunmen who shot her in her school bus. Now here she is, based in the UK, juggling exams with her role as a global spokeswoman, providing a voice for millions.
Nice to see you.
A woman is more powerful than men.
In this new school, it's hard. Physics, 61%.
You think you could ever ask your boy out on a date?
Roger Federer.
You like him?
I like his haircut.
Peter, she's obviously an awe-inspiring presence, but does this film do her justice, do you think?
I think it does. I think it's difficult to talk about this without sounding pious or right on, but I thought it was brilliant. And I think she's brilliant as well. It's sometimes like talking to a kind of eerily gifted kind of concert pianist who can play Rachmaninoff at the age of 6. Only that times about 1 billion, because she took a bullet in the head for her beliefs. I mean, it's quite extraordinary when we debate things like feminism and all the rest of it. We find ourselves mentally going back to the debate we had about the film Suffragette in a way. And here's somebody who has really walked it the way she talks it, and she's still only 18. It's kind of amazing. And I think there is something in this film which speaks to our modern debate about intersectionalism. Here is somebody who believes that education for girls is always a good thing. In Muslim countries, in non-Muslim countries, everywhere. It's non-negotiable, end of story. Now, there is something in the rather squeamish or fastidious liberal Western debate which thinks, well, I'm not sure about that. But she is sure, and she's taken a bullet for it. And there is something kind of incredibly exciting about this, I think.
Islam teaches us humanity, equality, forgiveness. It doesn't matter for me if my left side of my face isn't working, or if I cannot blink this eye properly. It doesn't matter for me if I can't smile properly. It doesn't matter that I'm not hearing in this ear. I can't hear.
Fascinating sort of family story here as well, though, isn't there, in terms of her relationship with her dad and the sort of slightly shadowy presence of her mum, who is almost just as important in that she is not educated.
No, her father was the campaigner, and she was a campaigner. I think the other interesting and valuable thing about this movie is that whatever the impression you get, her campaigning career didn't start with being shot. She wasn't like a kind of Marvel comic superheroine who became a campaigner.
She's blogging for the BBC.
Yeah, exactly. It was interesting to see she was a very precocious and articulate campaigner of the sort that the Taliban want to silence. That's important. It didn't. She wasn't just an ordinary girl shot in the head who kind of miraculously turned into a superheroine. She was already a very, very formidable campaigner, and that's what I think emerges from this film. But yes, her father was a campaigner as well, and she is, to some extent, of course, her father's daughter.
Did we need to be just told over and over again how great she is by the score, by the Alicia Keys ballad at the end?
Yeah, maybe not.
All of that felt a little unnecessary.
Yeah, maybe. Music in documentaries of that kind of directional, coercive sort, I'm a bit worried about. But it wasn't a deal breaker for me.
One child, one teacher, one book, and one pen. They can change the world. My father only gave me the name Malala. He didn't make me Malala. I chose this life and now I must continue it.
Coming soon to a school near you, that's Davis Guggenheim's He Called Me Malala. And finally, just time to turn back the clocks to those heady days of 1990s Britpop and drum and bass. This is Kill Your Friends.
Imagine you're standing on wafer-thin ice. Beneath your feet, you can see sharks circling. These are your colleagues, your friends.
You're a smart guy, Stephen. You're sharp, ambitious.
Fuck off.
Cool Britannia is looking stone cold dead in Kill Your Friends, the tale of a rogue A&R man at Unigram Records. Nicholas Hoult's coke-fueled executive is determined to reach the top by any means necessary, and woe betide the bosses and rivals who stand in his way. Ben, shades of American Psycho, dare we say it, in this one?
It's a poor man's American Psycho, possibly even bankrupt, sort of homeless man's American Psycho. It does what all bad black comedies do. It tries to just rely on shock humour and nothing else. So from the very first scene to the end, every scene is overstuffed with Bret Easton Ellis-like dialogue about disability jokes, drug-fueled threesomes, and it becomes so tiresome by the end that the effect that they want to seem to provide, which is that it's all shocking and daring and provocative, doesn't really work. It gets really boring by the end. And Nicholas Hoult is sort of one of the main problems with the film too.
He's sort of miscast, isn't he?
He seems so young and nice, and his narration is nasty. He's delivering all these lines just full of bile, but none of them really have the effect. It kind of feels like a kid dressing up as Patrick Bateman for Halloween.
Well, the first half had potential when it's a satire of that world and that kind of collective madness that descended on the music industry during that gold rush moment in the kind of mid to late 90s. And yet after that, you're right, it just gets those hammer blows of kind of remorselessness and bloodiness, and you just think, where is it now going? What is it saying? And it basically it's trying to get to the moon in third gear, isn't it?
Yeah, the industry stuff is interesting, and the fact that the soundtrack is very 1997, so it is kind of fun in a nostalgia way. But I think what it gets wrong is that you think of a great black comedy like The War of the Roses, and these characters start off as humans, and by the end they become these terrible people, and you can kind of believe in it more, or at least care.
Yeah.
Nicholas Hoult and everyone else in the film by the end are just awful people who do awful things. So there's nothing to really believe in. It just feels like someone who's trying desperately to shock you, which gets really boring.
Is there an audience for this though? Because surely, if you're a teenager in your early 20s, there's an appeal to nihilism, isn't there?
But you wouldn't get the references. I mean, and I kind of like the film for that as well. It doesn't try to make it appealing to young generation too, because it's very 90s, and all the music and all the references are very 90s. But anyone who's gone through that period will be old enough to find this kind of film just so repetitive and dull.
Sure. Yeah. If it had come out in 1998, it at least would have had a kind of topicality.
Potentially, yeah. So I'm really not sure who this film's for, to be honest, other than Nicholas Hoult completists, if there are any.
Who the fuck do you think you are?
You wouldn't last 10 minutes.
Kill Your Friends, showing us the ugly, bloody process that gave rise to such titans as Echo Belly and Shed 7. That's it from us. My thanks to Peter Bradshaw and Benjamin Lee. Thanks to you for watching. More films, fresh futures next week.
Mr. Pugh in the schoolhouse opposite takes up the morning tea to Mrs. Pugh and whispers on the stairs.
Here's your arsenic, yeah.